to the latest episode of 305 Vox Populi here in the town of Miami Lakes. I'm Mayor Manny Cid, and I want to thank some of our sponsors. We're powered by Miami Lakes AutoMall. Thank you to Fred Senra. He's a great friend of ours. They're located at 16600 Northwest 57th Avenue here in the town of Miami Lakes. Their phone number is 305-455-3510. Y'all got to check out this mural. It is amazing. Shout out to Grisel Gajano, who painted this. She's the real deal. Send her a text message at 786-353-8608. And our film production team, the Matter Lakes Broadcasting. So as you can see, today's a little different, and for the first time we go virtual. But we did that because we have an incredibly special guest, a great community leader, our state attorney, Katherine Fernandez Rundle. How you doing, Madam State Attorney?
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate that introduction and this opportunity. And, you are just amazing yourself and care so much about our community. So for me, this is a privilege and an honor. And hello to everybody out there in the universe, I guess, that may be watching.
Absolutely. And we really appreciate you coming on because this is a live classroom. It's produced by a local high school. And one of the first questions we wanted to start off with was your why. Why get involved in public service? Why pick this career? You know, when we're kids, we all have our dreams and aspirations, but being the first, Cuban American, breaking that barrier, the first Hispanic to do this here in Dade County, I mean, what's your why as to why you do what you do?
Well, to the young people and others that are watching this, public service is such a rewarding place to be. And for me and for my family, that was instilled in me from the very beginning when I was very, very small. And I think a lot of it had to do with their backgrounds. And when my father really moved here from Cuba many, many moons ago, he was so grateful to this country and to this community that was his way of saying, you know what, I'm so grateful. I've been embraced. I have a beautiful life here in the United States, and I'm going to do everything I can to give back. And he always instilled in me, and my mother as well. My mother raised 4 children, but she was always involved with different civic organizations and non-for-profits for children, for women. And so I was always around that. And for me, it was the lesson that if you have the wherewithal to go into public service, you should do it. And then for me, it was just such a natural progression. And the thing is that, the rewards don't come in the form of dollars or money. It comes in the purpose that you serve and the people that appreciate, right? They don't always understand it, but for the most part, they really appreciate that somebody cares about them, no matter what it is or where it is in public service. And so that's the reward you get, that feeling, oh my gosh. And you know what else? For those that are watching this and wondering whether it's for them, I get up every morning, as do most of the people in this office. It's not a job. It's a labor of love. It's a devotion. It's not a job. It's not an office. It's a mission we're all on. And so I get a lot of my rewards, not just from the people that we serve, we work for, but I get it from the other public servants, because what you get back from them is, oh my goodness, they're really giving up. They're making some personal sacrifices, as are their families, right? To go do something that's a public good. It's an honor to be able to do this. And so I feed off of that as well.
Yeah, that's true. All that positive energy is so important. And let me tell you, we live in an age where we need more and more great examples of strong women in public service. And I think you've been doing it. Probably you're the best example, I think, in the nation of somebody that's done it for so many years, where the community has entrusted you, has instilled in you their trust. You win election after election after election. What message do you have for those young girls to say, you know what, I can do it. I can be in public service. I can take this on. We're going to break barriers. We're going to do well, and we're going to lead. Because I will be very honest with you. I think when we look nationally, you're one of those figures that is truly going to inspire that next generation of young women, of young girls to say, you know what, I want to get involved.
Well, that's very kind of you and very generous of you to say about me. I had some good role models, which is what a lot of this is about, and mentoring. So to some of the, I would say to everybody, and perhaps the girls in particular, there's no substitute for hard work. All right, there's just isn't. You know, wherever you go, if you want to be effective, to have a meaningful purpose in your life, there's no substitute for hard work. So always work hard, no matter what your choice ends up being. The other thing is you can make different choices and change. You know, you don't have to, if you're committed to something and you know what it is, great. But it's okay to feel out different things and eliminate some things and then find something that you want to hold on to and then hang on to it. And the other thing I would say is mentors. You know, I was very blessed. I had a lot of mentors in my family and outside my family. And a lot of those during my journey have been men. You know, there were a lot of women as well. I mean, my Janet Reno was one of my heroines and mentored me. And that doesn't mean she always told me what I was doing was good either, you know. And I learned by example. So I would watch some of these incredible females, and I probably didn't even know that I was watching, whether it was on TV or it was in the news or it was at a meeting or it was in the office. And I would just kind of say to myself, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I want to be like that someday. Not everything, but you take bits and pieces and you tailor make it to what feels good for you. Because in the end, you have to believe in yourself and you have to forgive yourself. We all make mistakes. Oh my goodness, I've made so many mistakes along my journey in life, but I try to learn from them. And I learn from other people that make mistakes. I see what good they do and the right way they do it. And then I say, oh, I see that. That didn't work for them. Maybe that won't work for me either. So those are just some little nuggets of things that folks can do. And let me just say this, Manny, I feel so blessed to be able to serve this community. I truly do. And I've been, you know, asked to go in other areas and been asked to go to other positions, some public service, many of them public service. But I've been very blessed to find my purpose. And, you know, that, and it's an honor that this community entrusts that in me. And by the way, I tell the people in my office, you know, I'm sort of the name, but the truth of the matter is it's their work. This is 1,200 employees and what they do for victims, for the security of this community, what they do to protect the innocent, convict the guilty, make sure public safety is one of our main missions, but at the same time, be creative, be innovative, look for alternative pathways. You can't put everybody in jail and in prison. Mass incarceration is not the answer. It's part of the answer for part of the population, but it's not for everybody. And I just, you know, it's a duty. You know, it's a validation of the work that everybody does and has done over the years, but it also means we have a duty and responsibility. We make that commitment when we ask for them to believe in us.
You're absolutely right. And those are very wise words, especially for that future generation. And some of your accomplishments, one of them that really sticks out, you created Florida's first domestic violence unit. You know, what fuels you to do that and make sure that victims of domestic violence are taken care of, that we make sure we go above and beyond. And I know you've done a great job with that, but what fuels that fire?
You know, what happened to me when I was a young new prosecutor, I could see how families were destroyed, and I could see how children were abused either directly or indirectly. And then I would see the women, and they were afraid, they felt trapped. There were very few services available. There was not a network, you know, what I call a safety net. And so they were trapped in their homes. And sometimes people would ask me then, Manny, they would say, how do we stop violence in our community, in our neighborhoods, on the street? And I said, what we need to do is start in the home. And so I had a case. What really propelled me more was I had a case where a woman had been burned by her partner, and she was absolutely terrified to go into a courtroom. By the way, a courtroom can be, just on the best of days, a very daunting experience for all of us, any of us. And I told her, don't worry, we'll file charges. And we went to court, and she just could barely contain herself, and she just bolted on me a little bit. And I got it completely. And I knew then we needed to change things around. Then the next case I had was a woman whose husband had shot at her and missed. And that, to me, when we went to court, and she had the courage. It takes a lot of courage to stand there, look at the person that just tried to kill you, who's probably been verbally and emotionally abusing you for some time, to stand there and tell the world what happened. And the judge was not sympathetic and said she should count her lucky stars that he missed. And that was when I said, that's it. Wow. That's it. Okay. And at the time, Janet Reno allowed me, and it took years, and you don't do it on your own. That's the other thing for the young people, and I learned this. We all think we can do it, right? And we want to be able to do it, but it takes partnerships. It takes relationships. You have to build those relationships, build that trust, so that you can go to the police and say, look, from now on, if you see this, please make an arrest, so that you have non-for-profits. We can pick up the phone and say, I have a woman and her 3 children that need a shelter. Whatever the needs are, you need to build that. Those relationships are very, very important to make anything really successful. Nobody does it on their own.
No, you're right. Having a great team around you, that's how you're successful. So if you can delve into maybe a story, maybe one of the toughest parts in your career. You've been involved for so long, helping people, helping victims, making sure that justice is served. Maybe if you can, what would be one of those stories that you can share that it's helped mold your perspective today?
I know. I think some of the hardest cases, and this is important, especially for young people. There's some of the hardest cases that we handle, not just me, but the lawyers, the victim witness advocates that I really believe in. I built that up so that victims come into the system aren't going to be re-victimized by the criminal justice system. It's very complicated. And those cases involve manslaughter cases. They're the driving while intoxicated, or driving while on some kind of substance, alter substance, driving too fast, being a new driver. And it's so sad, because those cases, what you really have is a good person that made a bad decision, a good person that did something wrong, made a terrible mistake that had awful consequences. And so I will meet with the family that lost a child, because a lot of them are teenagers, and they killed another teenager, for instance. And those cases, Manny, there's tug at your heart, because both families are destroyed. Both of those young people, for just being reckless driving, or combining too many things, or text messaging and doing something else, going too fast. I'll never forget the case involving students in Hialeah. And this is when going out to lunch was a common occurrence. And these good kids, they got into a car, and they were not drunk or drinking or anything. They were running out to lunch. He was a pretty new driver. There were 3 other kids in the car, his girlfriend and his best friend. And they went to, I think, a Burger King, and they were late getting back, and they're rushing back to school to try to get there on time. And they lost control of the car and went into a wall. And I believe 3 of them died, and 1 was a quadriplegic or a paraplegic. The driver survived. Now imagine what a horrific case that is. You have all those mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters of the deceased, and then you have the driver, who also has a mother, father, brothers, sisters. And so those are the cases that I really find, we have to make a decision. as to what is the just outcome, for instance, in a case like that. And the reason I remember that is each one of the children, the families had a different opinion as to what justice looked like for them. Some wanted to be more forgiving, some wanted, life in prison, some were in between. And and then what was the right end result for that young driver? So those are the kinds of really tough balancing that we need to do in coming up with a right and just result.
No, and I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think that's something the public sometimes doesn't see, is that maybe balancing act where being state attorney is probably if not the toughest, one of the toughest jobs in South Florida, because of that, right? And we understand. I see it all the time here in our community. I know when my detectives go out, that they got to make sure that they get all the facts, every single fact, because how hard and difficult that process is. So, and talking about how hard and difficult that process is, the Veterans Treatment Court, something that's very important here in our community. We take care of our veterans, but if you could expand upon that and how that works, because we know how that's also very difficult, because we want to take care of the folks that have served our country and given back. But if you can touch upon the Veterans Treatment Court.
Mr. Mayor, I have to tell you, you have a tough job too. And you were talking about police departments and other elected officials and constituents, and balancing, this neighborhood wants X and the other one doesn't, how do you, so hats off to you too. And you serve as a role model, being a young elected official and serving where you serve in a great community. I love Miami Lakes.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
But so congratulations to you too. I guess one of the things that I would like to really touch upon is how young people, okay, this is really interesting that you asked about Veterans Court. I did not know you were going to ask about that topic, because honestly, it was a young man from a police department. He was 21 years old. He wanted to meet with me. He came with the chief of police. I said, of course, I'd be happy to meet with him. He came into my office in full uniform, walking. And he said to me, this is, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years ago or more. He said, listen, this is who I am, and I want to talk to you about how these veterans suffer from PTSD, what they see, whether it's in Iraq or Afghanistan, wherever they are, they come home with all of that tension, that PTSD, and it's hard for them to integrate it back into their families. Sometimes they go into substance use just to anesthetize themselves. Sometimes they overreact with their wife or their children. They don't mean to. It's a reaction from their training, from their bad experiences. And we need to do something special for them. And I thought about that and had a whole presentation. And I said, you're absolutely right. Let me see what I can do. And I'm telling you, this 21-year-old, he got up to leave, and I thanked him. I said, thank you for enlightening me on this. And you know what? He lifted up his trousers, and he had 2 prostheses on. I know, that's how I felt. I was just brought to such an emotional state that this young man, who's 21 years old, maybe 22 at the most. And so that's a very important message for the high school students that are watching this right now. You have ideas, thoughts, you have experiences that we all need to be innovative and creative. And so if you have ideas like that, look at the meaningful change that young person made for the veterans coming. So we did establish the court, and the concept is to identify those who are at high risk, high need, and get them off a punitive track, right? Sometimes actually, Manny, the police would tell us, I had to arrest him because I didn't know what else to do. He was having a meltdown. And sometimes just a flat tire, a blowout that makes a loud noise would send them into, a very difficult state, and they'd start acting out. So the police too were looking for alternative. They didn't want to necessarily arrest a veteran who wasn't hurting anybody at the moment, but obviously needed to get intervention. So we created that intervention, an alternative. Once they get into the system, once they get into court, we try to get them case management. We try to understand, is it mental health issues, is it substance abuse, is it dual diagnosed? We also, and I have to tell you, Commissioner Pepe Diaz is a huge supporter of the veterans, and we work with all the veterans services here. We work with the VA, which is just a couple of blocks from here, to make sure that they don't lose, because sometimes when you get arrested, you lose those federal dollars and services that go to them. And so we wanted to create something that we could make positive. And one of the things Commissioner Diaz did was he got local veterans to mentor them. So that each one, I know, it says each one that comes through the system, we're going to deal with them systemically, but they're also going to have a mentor in the community, a big brother, a big sister, someone that will work with them. So that's a really good example how young minds, young experiences can have an impact on something as big and important as a criminal justice system.
No, and having that holistic approach to serving the veteran population has made a huge difference. One of the questions the students wanted me to ask you is there something your current self would tell your past self when you were starting off as state attorney?
Oh my goodness, there's so many conversations I would have with myself. I think I was hard on myself sometimes. And, kind of goes back to what I said, we all make mistakes. And sometimes we have to be a little more forgiving of ourselves, because it can cripple you if you're too hard on yourself. You made a mistake, recognize it, integrate it into the next steps that you're going to take to make sure you don't repeat that, or try not to anyway. And that really is the most important thing, is if you hone in on it. Believe me, I do that a lot. To this day, I said, why did I do that? Did I make a mistake? I second guess myself a lot. So maybe I would do a little less of that as a younger person, and trust yourself to do what you think is right. And the other thing I think I would have said to myself was, it's okay to disagree with other people, to disagree with people maybe that are in authority over you, but you must do it. And sometimes I was a little rebel rouser, right? And I didn't do it right. I would just burst out and say what was on my mind. Sometimes, not always. But I learned over the years that that's not the way you can really create change or be respected back. Discourse can be a healthy thing, but we have to respect each other's differences, respect each other's different opinions, choices in life. And we can all learn from that. Civility is so important, man. I know you know this. So I guess that's one of the things I would have said to myself is, I always was, and one other thing. I was kind of, sometimes I would be sort of anti-government. I grew up in sort of the ERA, civil rights era. The immigrant population from Cuba was very important to see how they were treated and integrate them. And so I was kind of critical of government and constitution and things of that sort. And I think I would have toned that down a little bit, but it's okay. When you're young, one of the things I try to tell young people is challenge us. It's okay to challenge us in authority, but again, to do it in a constructive, civil way. Because if you don't do that when you're young, when are you going to do it? We're counting on the younger generation, right? To tell us what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong.
You're absolutely right. We got to keep empowering them to make those decisions and question, and have those critical thinking skills, which are so important. So we have about 5 minutes because I know you have an extremely busy schedule, and we appreciate you. One thing that we do different that the kids really, really enjoy is that we turn it around. Do you have any questions you want to ask me? I know it's a little different, but that's part of how we do the podcast always.
Well, yes, I didn't know that you were going to ask me that. But I have 2 questions for you.
Okay.
And maybe these students already know your story. But you serve much more as a role model than say I do, because you're young, you're smart, you've made an accomplished position in life where a lot of people don't A, strive for that, and B, succeed in that till sometimes much later in life. So I would like to know, how does Manny the mayor, how did you get to where you were? What motivated you? And what would be your words, your pearls of wisdom to the
So
young people watching?
that's a great question. So very similar to you. I mean, I'm the son and grandson of Cuban exiles. So in my home, government, politics, it was talked about every day. So for me, and seeing the struggles that my parents went through, that my grandmother went through, it was a natural progression to be an active citizen. So I knew from the first day that I could vote. I've never missed an election since I was 18 years old. My parents instilled that in me, and when I saw my community and the need for there to be young leadership, that's, I made the decision. It was I got a little nervous because you could lose, right? And that's one of the fears in life sometimes, that you kind of get afraid. You're like, hey, what if? And now as a little bit older, I'm like, what's the worst that could happen? I lose an election, so what? But getting involved, making that difference, and something that you hit upon, which was absolutely right, having your voice heard, speaking out, having your opinion put out there, you never know how that gets molded within that discussion. So no, you're right, and that's something that I grew up with every day, and I live with it today. I think about my grandmother every single day because of those struggles. Them getting here, working in factories in Hialeah, and seeing that to where everything happens now is because of them. But yeah, it was instilled in me at a very young age.
Well, this is obvious, and you say it with such enthusiasm and a smile. Did they see you achieve where you are now? And you're going to be achieving so much more in the future, but did they get it? Where they alive to see it?
So my parents are still with us. My dad's actually in hospice care at the moment. But my grandmother, she was one of my first campaign donations when I was running for mayor. But she passed away during early voting, heading into so I'll never forget that. And this is one of the lessons too, is that I didn't know if I wanted to keep. I remember we're in the middle of campaign season. She had passed away. She was like my mom, and I didn't want to go back to campaigning. I was in tears. But everybody called me and said, Manny, how you honor her legacy is by going out there. She sacrificed her entire life for you to move forward. So that's what I did. I know she's up in heaven watching down, but that's something that fuels me every day. I mean, us that we know that our families lost everything, and for us to have the opportunity to be in such an amazing, the best country in the world, and give back and help and do what you're doing as state attorney, even what we're doing here at Miami Lakes, it's really a privilege and an honor.
I just got chills. It's such a powerful message. And I have mind is not as powerful as yours, but you made me remember, sort of the pressure you feel, sort of from, not pressure, but a good pressure. It's a point of, I want to make my family proud. So when my father came here, he had a very heavy accent, and all of my friends, his friends, God love them, they told me that he was a real, he was a Cuban, a real Cuban, strong Cuban. And the community here wasn't really ready for his accent. The courts weren't ready for his accent. He, like you as a young person, he just embraced this country. He was so grateful. So he ran for office 5 times.
Wow.
But his name was Carlos Benito Fernandez. And at that time, and he lost all 5 elections. And they just weren't ready. He wasn't bitter about it. He understood it. And he just kept, he got help get other people get elected. But I remember when I used to be like 5 or 6 years old, going around knocking. This is the old days, right? Where you knock on doors.
Yep.
And then say, would you please vote for my daddy? And they didn't vote for him. And so when my time came around, I remember thinking, oh my gosh. And my father had passed away. And he was the one that encouraged me to come to this office. And I thought, oh my goodness, if I run and I lose, it just ate at me to think I have to win for him, but then I said, no, but even if you don't win, you have to run for him, because he ran and he wasn't, the community wasn't ready. Let's see if his pioneer work made a difference. And if the community now is ready to vote for someone named Fernandez. And they were, so I just a little story about how our families really impact us.
That's extremely powerful. And think about it. I'm sure he's watching down, extremely proud. But how many elections have now you won in a row?
Oh, Manny, it sounds like
know?
I'm bragging or something. I don't even like to talk about it. It's, 7 or 8. I mean, and it's a lot, but for me, it's been my life's work. It's been my purpose. It's been a privilege. It's been an honor. And I don't take that for granted. I know that the day I stop serving, it's about service. And the day that I stop working hard and being creative and being innovative and being responsive and protecting our community and making a difference, then it's time to go. And there'll be other young, people that are watching this that their time will come, and there'll be other leaders. And whether it's this position or others, I just encourage everybody to really consider public service. It's just, I can't stress sufficiently. There aren't enough words to describe the gratification that you feel.
I absolutely agree with you. I almost believe that everybody should run for office once in their lifetime. But I know you got to go. Are there any closing words that you have for future generations? We know that your legacy as state attorney is extremely powerful. Anything you want to leave off with?
I only to say that I'm very proud that we're such a diverse community. And I will tell all of those watching that we need to maintain that diversity, right? And it's much better to be a mosaic, right? That where we have different cultures, we have different music, food, art, traditions, and we really need to honor those and need to celebrate those. And one last thought, I recruit from all over the country. And we are one of the best sought after offices in the United States. And we're one of the largest in the United States. And when I recruit, because I want a diverse, my community is diverse. And I want this office to reflect as best it can, despite the horrible wages that the legislature gives them, that I want this office to be as diverse as possible. And you know what they say, Manny, when I go around to different law schools, to different communities, to different boards, meetings, they say, I love Miami. I love Miami because, and they say Miami when they mean the big Miami, Miami-Dade, right? All 5 municipalities. They say, I love the diversity. That's like the first word. It's not about surf and sun anymore. They just love the vibrant mixture of who we are. So my humble tone of appreciation is thank you to all of you for making us a diverse community, for celebrating each other. And I just know, especially the young people and others that are watching, because you're young too, Manny. Yeah. Everything's relative. I just wish you the best, and may God bless and guide you, and trust yourself.
No, thank you, Madam State Attorney. We really appreciate you coming on, taking the time, and more importantly, inspiring that future generation. So thank you very, very much, and have a great day.
Thank you for having me, Manny. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye.
And there you have it, our state attorney, Katherine Fernandez Rundle. We really appreciate her coming on. And make sure that you subscribe to the 305 Vox Populi YouTube page. We're going live next Wednesday on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll see you then.